Hello and welcome. My name is Stephanie Green. I'm your host today in the second session of Poetry Lit's two-day festival. I'll be hosting three poets who are Vasiliki Albedo, Ronna Bloom, and Sukema. And I just want to say, what they have in common is an interest in poetry in relation to chronic illness, healthcare, and healing. Our format today will be different from a usual Poetry Lit session, in that all three poets will read one after the other, and we leave the Q&A till after they've finished reading. Our first poet is Vasiliki Albedo. She lives in Greece with 4 cats and 2 chronic illnesses. Her pamphlet, Phare in the Oubliette, was joint winner of Live Cannon's competition in 2020. Vasiliki, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Steph. I will be sharing my screen so that people can hear me properly, since I'm wearing a mask. Can you see that? Can you see my document? I can't hear anyone. Can you see my document? Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So, hello, thank you so much for inviting me to read at this wonderful event, and many congratulations to Poetry Lit for reaching this important 5-year milestone. It's a pleasure to be here to read with these brilliant poets, and thank you to our viewers who came to see us. I'm sorry to have to do the reading with a mask on, but unfortunately there are circumstances that can't be helped. I'll be reading 4 poems and sharing my screen so that you can read along in case you can't hear me very well. So this first poem was published in Banshee and will also be available online soon. The Stars. My jelly legs are off the couch by grace of Prozac. 4 months indoors and the neighborhood is treason. Despite the heat, I find myself in the lot where my cousins pitched the ball and timid John once kissed me on a picnic blanket after school. Now, a commercial complex scaffolds the plot, declaring itself progress. I walk past the abandoned house where wisteria intoxicates concrete walls. In the distance, forest and rapeseed fields stand dishonest in their promise of profit. All around me, summer ensues. More fires are certain. Dust blown from the Sahara toffees the air. Each year the desert spread a little closer. I remember the words desire and disaster spring from the same root, the stars, which tonight will be shrouded. Wind plucks almond flowers, my breath. Mountains buckle the horizon, the sun fizzing like a heartburn tablet. Oops. This next poem was published in the Poetry Review under the guest editorship of Kim Moore and Hannah Lowe. Crush. Just shy of 18, I moved from Athens to London. A man shouts at me to go back to Colombia. Another palms my breast on the tube. 3 months later, the phone rings at 1 a.m. This is the voice of your past, my high school crush says. His band has won a Brit Award. I slink into the jeans and sweater heaped by my bed. Tonight, a glittered line around my eyes. The taxi zips me to the palace. He's at the bar, sixth whiskey, clutching the trophy. We hold hands as the hotel swoons and I fall through a trapdoor to the sun. I lick salt off his pearly-cue, down more shots, a wedge of lemon like fool's gold between my teeth as he pulls me to the bathroom, lines his gram of fairy dust. In the descending elevator, we kiss inside the mirrored flares all the way to my apartment, where he splits off the magicked dress, the stubborn husk of love molting. It doesn't matter because he's had too much, and while warming my ribs in his hands, tells me he has a girlfriend. I seduced him. I fold my breasts into my arms. Why do you like me? He asks, and the poetry of his sadness. In the venomed heat, we sleep snaked into each other, wake to a trail of spandly scales on the floral sheets. I'm back to napkin twisting over scrambled eggs at the usual cafe, where he pulls a tabloid out of a punter's hand and points at the front page. That's me. When he appears again, he'll be flickering on television, singing me a song about a night gone wrong. Oh, baby, don't feel so down. It could be about anyone. So this poem appeared in Berlin Lit and is available online. This morning, a woman on the display screens at Best Buy asked, "Why can't I be talented?" I am not thinking about desire, but desire is playing its elevator music. In the background, a cage fighting show brought to us by a Thai company. A ring girl described as spectacular. A child watches a duck counting coins by the cubic meter. I imagine him hurt, the bolt coming loose on a roller coaster, some new mutating disease. Feel my heart beat in his while I hug him too tightly. Corporate job left for childcare and writing. Some days I pull at my face in the mirror, my inbox a dead zone. What I want and what I'm becoming only converge in my child's breath. I remember talent originally meant a unit of money. Kick for our entertainment, Vaseline-faced ultimate fighter. Sometimes I'm a little YOLO, he tells his cupman. The duck dives into his pool of change. And this is my last poem. And this is a poem that appeared in Poetry Wales. Perseverance. Today, Perseverance gathered its first Martian rock, shipped it to our planet inside a protected capsule. We are one step closer to solar system domination. Sotheby's auctions Napoleon's hat, a dredger remains lost in the new Arctic waterways. Last month, during the wildfires, I was vacating my flat, lupus crackling, failing every pregnancy test. In the ultrasound, my womb looked like a stone. The doctor said my 32-year-old baby-white pelvis was home to early ovarian failure. A brush out, another handful of hair, spend the rest of the day talking like someone who's plain, someone like me, who insists, I never wanted children anyway. You can't hurt the Arctic. And that's me. Thank you so much.
Actually, you have a 10-minute slot, and so far you've only used 5 minutes of it.
Oh, I timed it and it was 9 minutes.
Oh.
I'm not sure what's happened.
Do you want to read one or two more poems?
I haven't prepared anything, so I don't know what to read. Would it be okay if you maybe once again at the end, if we have more time?
Yes, let's see how it goes. Let's see.
Okay,
But thank you very much.
thank you.
Our next poet is Ronna Bloom. Ronna lives in Toronto, Canada. She is a poet and psychotherapist who leads poetry initiatives in healthcare. Her new book, In a Riptide, will be out this Monday, 15th of September, 2025. Ronna, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Vasiliki, and Sukima, who's to come. I'm glad to be here in this truly international event from Greece and from Edinburgh and from Glasgow and I don't know where else. But so here I am in Toronto. It's early morning and I'm a little out of it because I didn't sleep that well. But I am happy to be here. And this is my new book, In a Riptide. So new. As Stephanie said, it's not even officially out till Monday. So this is a preview, and thank you for inviting me. I want to start with the very first poem in the book because it sets up the whole book. So I'll read it. Immeasurable. Today, a woman of no measurable age stopped me to ask where she could buy some meat. And her eyes filled up with tears when it seemed too far or impossible, and every shop was closed. I could do nothing but stand there vibrating in the hesitant spring. We were just two more meandering women in the empty street, some of us looking down as though illness could pass through the eyes, others looking up, sending out our million help me messages. We stood there with nothing obvious passing between us but time. Then she smiled and went away. And I thought of the four people the Buddha met in his travels. Sick person, old person, dead person, happy person with nothing. And I felt like all of them. So this book is set in 4 sections. Sick person, old person, dead person, happy person with nothing. And I'm going to read 1 or 2 poems from each of the sections, plus the little section headings, because they delineate with their own little, here. To show the scars, sick person. An excruciating blue day. All April, the one purple pansy clung on in the hail. It waved its silky elements. A spider with elegant legs appeared on my ceiling. There you are again, I said. Or is this your daughter? I don't speak spider, but tried to coax one from the sink, then gave up and flooded it. Yes, there's an edge to my voice. It's too cold for the spring I want. My mother asks when she can see me again, demands a date. Just for today, I will be the World Health Organization and have all the answers. For anger, take a hit of helium. For bitterness, mimic the dog's lolling tongue, then watch his reaction. When you find a tumor, ask the barista at Second Cup, is there a cancer discount for that? For sleep, lie down if possible. For sadness, dance. I explain, keep staring at the blue sky like it's your pain. Eventually, it will change color. Things he said last time we visited. You smell like cloves and eucalyptus. Please spray some of that in my sleeves. I'll have a popsicle, lemon. Do you have more of that foot energy? Is the canister full? Thank you. I love you. I like that sweater. It makes sense you're here during these Gnostic rituals. I hope to go to Bridgepoint and have a big end-of-life celebration with all my friends. Do you consider yourself a therapist or a witch? I've always liked citrus. It's the Earth's magnetic field. You're like the mother I need now. You are the mother I need now. I'd like to try the mango lassi. For 10 billion years, old person. One night. In 1 minute, I slept a whole night. In one night, I slept a whole minute. The world changed completely while I was gone. Dear Now, many people are trying to get in touch with you. They have a lot on their minds, but you, dodgy fucker, you keep coming up no or ow. You, Dazzler, shift and shift again. Your function, if you have one, is to mesmerize so we can't actually see you. A flash of light strobes to my left as you turn over beside me in bed, whisper, now. Did I see you? Did I turn around and turn into salt? Could I stare into your eyes like the eyes of the sun and keep seeing? Something doesn't want me to look. Over here it motions to the last minute or the next. Why so invested in invisibility? Is this how you do your great and terrible work? There's no tracking you. You are nowhere, and nowhere is now here. I want to stay up with you all night and get my questions answered. The earth held me, dead person. Rending the garments. There should be a Shiva for every kind of grief. The breakup, the diagnosis, the assault. Where people come over unbidden and wash their hands and bring casseroles and hold you. They do this all day or 3 times a day for 7 days, so you know it happened. It matters to more than you, matters to a community of you. What's needed is wailing with an axe, fights, outings, and touch and singing. Can you hear me? Has anyone done that for you lately? Or ever? Come over, torn open the sky, and let the snow fall in the wrong month to show there's a rip in the face of the world? I've sort of lost track of time, so I'll read one more poem, and if it happens that something's off, we'll do something else. The 4th section, don't close the door to the door to the door. Happy person with nothing. Sisyphus goes skiing. I'm writing to you from the top of the mountain. Dear friends, let me tell you, I never expected life to take such a turn. Icarus just brought me molten chocolate in a paper cup, and we sit before a fire with our feet up. This house is of a kind I've never seen before, built of stones I didn't carry, but someone did. Someone got here before me, before us, and left this place. What did they destroy for our pleasure? What did it cost them? I don't want to think of it. It's teeming with the young in brilliant colored stretchy outfits and the strangest boots. Big boots the gods from my childhood might have worn. but made of unreal fibers and heavy, so heavy. But the thing is, I got here and I was carrying nothing, just 2 sticks to help me walk on these long pieces of wood. I sat in a chair that lifted me high into the trees, so high I could see the stars in their branches. And I made it. I'm resting, Ik and I, so close to the sun, and I never want to go back down. Thank you.
There is time for one more if you want to.
There is time. Okay. I'll read you the last poem in the book. A full glass. A few days short of New Year's Eve, a man stands on the sidewalk, bundled against the dry cold. He holds a martini glass full of brownish liquid you hope is hot cider made from September's Macintosh apples with a bit of ginger or lemon for brightness. Though the drink looks a lot like the slush you're walking on. To the future, he says as you pass. To the future, you say, holding nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last poet is Sukema. Sukema was born in Illinois in USA and has lived in Glasgow, Scotland since 1981. He says he is kinda an animateur for poetry, healing and peace. He teaches Tai Chi in healthcare settings and expressive writing in Maggie's Care Centre, which is for patients with cancer. Go ahead, Sukema.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And what a delight to be reading with Vasiliki and in Greece, and then somebody in Toronto, Rona. It's such a delight, and I'm jealous of Rona writing a book based on the four sites. Being a Buddhist myself, I would have liked to write that book myself. Anyway, I'm going to begin with a poem that's not my own. It's a very short poem, and the reason I want to begin with it's called Choose. It's written by Carl Sandburg, and it's like the length of a haiku. It's very short, and if you can see my fist, this is the symbol of it, and this is the symbol of it. And the poem goes like this. Choose the single clenched fist, lifted and ready, or the open asking hand, held out and waiting. Choose, for we meet by one or the other. And the reason I wanted to read that is simply because Carl Sandburg babysat for my mom just around the time when World War I started, and I have a picture of Carl Sandburg holding my mother on his knee when she was about 2 years old. And I just wanted to honor that memory. And who knows, Sandburg is quite a well-known poet in America, wrote a famous poem called Chicago, and maybe that's where my inspiration has come for poetry. I don't know. And the second poem is a short extract from and it's a tribute to Kathy Galloway, who died very recently. She was the first woman leader of the Iona community, and she was a good friend, and she and I worked together on a week-long retreat with Ted Bowman, who's a grief educator on the Isle of Iona, called Poetry as Medicine, or Poetry for Healing. And this is a benediction which she wrote. A blessing on our departures. Without them, we cannot walk the way. A blessing on our companions, bread of friendship, bread of the soul. A blessing on all travelers, border crossers, wanderers in strange lands. A blessing on all the stages on the way and those who gave us guidance. A blessing on all those we leave behind and on their journeys. A blessing on all lostness and delays, Those two are life, a blessing on our arrivals, homecomings, new beginnings, bright horizons. And that's from Talking to the Bones by Kathy Galloway. And Kathy and I, when we worked on Iona, we did a walking renga, which I'm going to share a renga later, all around the island of Iona. And I want to screen share that, but not quite yet. I was worked with a lot of people who have chronic pain. And this next poem is called Chronic Pain. And I'm trying to figure out a way to express it in words, what it feels like to have chronic pain. And this is in its 5th draft. I wanted to share it today because I'm just not quite sure if it's ready yet. But I wanted to try it out and feel what it feels like to read it aloud to you folk, wherever you are in this troubled world of ours. Chronic pain. All this and more, rumblin', ramblin', belly rollin', beatin' the bounds of never, never land, bowlin' for a blend of sacred and profane, prophet-pleasing poems on trees, when they harvest more than words, more than all this nonsense about being and becoming, other than what the hell does anyone know about our whole and half-baked ideas, boiled down, distilled into sounds like this, and that before the essence rounds about self-effacing, a homeopathic remedy for a way out of ever knowing how to keep score of anything beyond a bow for another sowing of lost syntax split into a million stars, beyond hope of living in the memory of scars, beyond hope of living in the memory of scars. And just to revert back to Kathy Galloway, I wrote my own blessing poem, which was a sort of found poem. It just happened to me while I was on a retreat after a long walk down in England near the Malverns. Blessings. Going nowhere, doing nothing, just sitting on a wooden bridge over a pond in sun-bright water, resting after a hike in ripples of light, feet in cool water with little minnows nuzzling and burrowing between our toes, nibbling pink flesh, dead skin protein. The fish fight for it, for the best bites. Hundreds feasting, a blissful tickle. We stay longer, long enough until our feet disappear. And this next one, before I read it, I'd like to screen share it if I can. It's just so you see what it looks like on the page. It was published last year in memory of my friend Jerry Luce. Jerry and I and a lot of other people who were participating in this wrote rengas. And for those of you who don't know what a renga is, renga simply means chain in Japanese. And it's before haiku, renga happened, and it was always written collectively. And this poem I'd like to share. Can you, is it being screen shared at the moment now? Could you, yeah, there it is. So basically, I just want to screen share it for a moment so you see how it's written. You got 3 lines, which is usually a starting haiku, followed by 2 lines, approximately 7 syllables, and then 3 lines, and so on. And it's like a chain or a necklace of verses. And the last verse often links in some subtle way to the first verse. So you can stop screen share now, and I'll just read the poem to you. It's called Kuri and Huddle, a renga in spring, in memory, Jerry Luce. Sense of presence, sense of absence, dandelion. Flitting gold, there was always the ghost fish, pale and almost not there. By now, Jerry would have seen the book sale sign and snuck off. Left behind at the station, arrivederci, weeping ash, There's actually a memorial to oldest ash tree in the Botanic Gardens in Glasgow that the gardener made it as a memorial. Kaki tree has seen fire and hard rain, and that kaki tree survived the Nagasaki bombing as a cutting from that kaki tree. Black elder, blushing pink. Seeking more than reaping, willows curry and huddle, quiet dragonflies spit. May downpour, the page softens along the path. Birds sing, we dance, we share her song for anyone not here. Our last oasis, a room full of succulents. And so that was a walking ranga in the Botanic Gardens, remembering the late Jerry Luce, who was a writer in residence for about 3 or 4 years in the Botanic Gardens in the early 21st century. And the participants, all rangas are written collectively, was Ken Coburn was the master, I was the host, Alec Finlay, Linda France, Susan Gibb, Linda Haggerstone, Ratna Devi Holtburn, Tony Matheson, Ellen McAteer, Amy Rafferty, Angus McMillan, Jane Macbeth, Mercedes Richardson, Peter Richardson, Ian Stephen, Caroline Stewart, Sukema, that's me again, sorry, Maggie Watson, Roger West, Christy Williamson. And I often use rangas when I work with people in the Maggie Center, also people with mental health issues. And I'll finish now with a short poem simply called Before. Before. Now what after? This between real and imagined world, when the breath comes back bigger, longer, easier than before. A soft touch, trusting the unexpected pleasure, the smile of recognition that life continues even while dreaming, even when awake, before the day-long disaster of nothing started, of nothing finished, just this longing for a question that has no answer before, when flotsam lingers in the air as clouds of unknowing with shadows desperate for a body, any body, everybody blessed before the end. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sukema. We're now on time again. What I'm now going to do, first of all, thank you all of you for amazing poems. What I'm going to do now is ask several questions. And as I ask each question, I'd like each of you to answer in turn. And we'll go in the order that you read. So starting with Vasiliki, then Rona, then Sukema. So question 1, Vasiliki, is when did you first start writing poems seriously?
I was kind of always writing poems a little bit in my diary, and then at some point, a little bit later in life, I got a chronic illness which forced me to take quite a lot of time off work, and that's when I started reading a lot of poetry, taking online workshops, and writing a lot of poetry.
What sort of age were you then?
I was around 35.
Okay, thank you. Rona?
I started similar to Vasiliki. I started writing when I was a kid in a diary. And I didn't, there were poems, they were really bad poems, but I gave them to my mother and she liked them, so that was okay. And it was only, I became a photographer and made videos and lived in England and Ireland for 5 years. And when I came back to Canada around 30, I realized I knew I would make something, and poetry or writing was free, cheap, like you didn't need a dark room or equipment, and it was just what came to me. So really I started seriously around 30 and just didn't stop.
Thank you. Sukema?
Well, I started very late because I didn't learn to read till I was 18. Being dyslexic, I failed everything in school. But then around 18, I did learn to read. And then around 19, I got very active in the civil rights movement. And my first serious writing was slogans for civil rights marches and also songs. I wrote songs back then for civil rights movement where we'd sing while we marched. And I'm still involved in that sort of thing now.
Thank you. Question 2. Are poems a way out of the dark?
I think so. For me, I don't know if it's the way out of the dark, but I think for anybody who uses any creative medium, there is something in being creative and in channeling one's feelings and thoughts into a creative act that transforms the feelings in a way. And so, yeah, I think perhaps we can say that it is a way.
I would say poems are a way into the dark, through the dark, sitting in the dark. If you're in the dark, you're already in the dark. So the poem is a way to be there with you so that you're not alone in the dark. Whether you're reading someone else's poem or you're writing a poem, it's a company in the dark. And then at times, for me in reading or writing poem, even if I'm not really out of the dark, there's some shift that happens. It may be for a moment, it may be a big learning or a release, but some movement through, yeah. So, but I think going into it and being in there with the poetry is essentially big part of the process.
Well, if I don't understand something or I'm perplexed or upset by something, the moment I start writing about it, it opens a door. And I write and I write and I write until something begins to open in me or in the words or in between the words. But it does, and particularly after writing something, if I read it aloud, that's when the light gets in. The cracks between the words, as a famous singer-songwriter mentioned.
You've anticipated my next question, Sukaima, which is there a good dark, Vasiliki?
Oh yes, I think there is a good dark. I mean, the earth in its fertility is quite dark, isn't it? Like the seeds, when they go into the loam, they go into the darkness and then they germinate. So I do think that there is something that cultivates the life force in the dark. So yeah, it always depends how one means what one means when they say the dark. But yeah, I do think there is a positive, productive, and beautiful dark as well. Like it is in the night sky after all that we can see the stars and the universe and the cosmos.
I just love Vasiliki's answer. I don't think I want to say anything.
Sukaima, do you want to add to yours, or you've answered it?
I just love everything you said. So I'm just going to leave it there. It kind of blew anything that was in my mind out. So let's leave it there.
Sukaima, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, one of my favorite children's stories when I would read to the children was The Owl Who Was Afraid of the Dark. And I love that story, but I'm also a dance movement therapist, and I work with people with their eyes closed in what's called authentic movement. And it's something about closing your eyes, going into the dark, going inside. It opens a door. It's a very positive place. It's like having a waking dream when you work with that.
So my next question is, how do you write into the silences?
Into the silences. For me, it's a bit of a process. I think I start writing, and then the more I write, the more I can get into the silences, because they're silent for a reason, and therefore it means that perhaps I need to break through something in order to get there. And I think sometimes, in the process of writing over a period of time, that door will be nudged open, and the silence will be expressed into words. So for me, it's a process. It's not like I sit there and I think, okay, I'm going to write about this thing that I didn't want to speak about, or that I've never told anybody, or that I've been silenced about. It's more of a process, a creative process. And if something wants to be expressed, it will come out once I've started writing. I wouldn't force it though.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this into the silences. What can you say something more about that, Stephanie?
I suppose I was thinking about the unsaid and the white spaces on a page. That sometimes they can say more.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, okay, I get it. So there's two different reactions I have, like the unsaid and the white spaces on the page. I love that idea of letting the white spaces speak and be white on the page. There needs obviously to be something else there in order for it to have an effect. It can't just be there. But in terms of writing into the unsaid, sometimes I can't, like I just have to wait. Like a long time. It can be very painful, especially if there are a lot of feelings about something. And there's nothing forming, not even a line. I mean, I won't hold back. If there's even a little flicker of a line, I'll write something, even if it's crap. But if there's nothing coming but a jumble of feelings, I have to sit with that until something gives me a starting point, gives me a word or phrase or something. So sometimes I just have to sit in the silences with the experience that I'm having. It's hard.
Sukaima.
I love pauses, and I love space between stanzas, space between words. I like to linger in those silences. And what I really like about the word silent is that it has the same letters as the word listen. And I think listening is where, when silence happens, it opens your ears more.
My next question is, how important is play or a sense of humor in your poetry?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, actually, because I was thinking about which poets have influenced me, which is a question sometimes people ask in interviews, and I never have a ready answer, and I always get stuck. And I was thinking about Mary Ruefle, for example, and her playfulness, and how much I appreciate and love that in her poetry, how, the melancholy and the playfulness sit side by side and sort of play against each other in a way. So I think playfulness is important because it's a texture, isn't it? And it's a quality of life that is really healing and helpful. And I think it can be very usefully employed in one's writing if it comes naturally to one. And it is, I think, something that I do use in my poetry at times.
Oh, it's completely essential for me. Like, I think the poems I write can be very dark. The first poem I read, Excruciating Blue Day, and asking the barista, is there a cancer discount for that? Like, but the humor comes right in the middle of the grief or the horror. It's just how I see things and how I move, and it's a great relief to me when it's funny, not to take away from the seriousness, but somehow, because we live both always at the same, not in the same moment always, but yeah. So it's definitely important to me. And the one that I read, Sisyphus Goes Skiing, the whole thing is playful. It's kind of kind of crazy. So yeah, it makes me happy when silliness descends.
Sukaima.
Well, your question reminds me of the famous book by Huizenga, Homo Ludens, People Playing, and how important play is to children. It's serious play. And I love the idea of play. I'm reading a book by Nacha, I can't remember, Nekavodjevic, I can't remember. It's all called Improvisation. It's all about play and improvising. And yeah, I improvise in words all the time. And my friend Billy Bolton, who I worked with quite a lot, She has a precept for writing. Whatever you write is right. You can't write the wrong thing. And I like the jokiness of that.
Thank you. I now want to ask you about autobiography in your poems. Do you dare make an exhibition of yourself?
We're all laughing.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I wouldn't call myself an exhibitionist, but I do think that for sure, you know, this is such a wide question in poetry, you know, the question of the speaker and if it's autobiographical or not, and if it's accurate or true to the facts, or if it's fictionalized, etc. So for sure, in my poems, a lot of things are fictionalized. I don't stick to the truth. I stick to the emotional truth. And so, you know, there may be certain facts that are not represented as accurately in the poems. So I wouldn't say I make an exhibition of myself. I would say the speaker perhaps maybe sometimes can come across as confessional in that sense of saying something about the inner self. I think it's important when writing a poem to connect with the reader to express something that is true. And that truth can be, you know, factual or emotionally factual. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but those are my thoughts about this.
Yeah, my earlier work was very clearly autobiographical and more linear, more narrative. Could really draw a line, I think, between me and the poem. And not that they stopped, but because I think that the poetry for me comes out of a personal experience, and I allow myself, I am in there because that's where the poem starts. Something out here resonates, something in here. So but it's also not quite as autobiographical because I could respond to something I'm seeing, deeply feeling about this thing with all of the language I use, and it's not necessarily about me. It's wider than me. I'm in there, but it's also wider than me. So I think the writing has gone like that, a little bit more inclusive and wider.
Well, my memory comes up of when I was interviewing, it was a panel discussion with Survivors Poetry Scotland with a novelist who grew up in Grangemouth. And he'd written this novel, and people would come up, and it was his first novel. And a lot of him was in it, probably, made up characters. But the people would come up into the street to this man, and they would say, you didn't get that quite right about me, or whatever. And his answer to that was, as a writer, we get to make things up. Mm-hmm. And I think there is truth in how you play with words, and you get to make things up. And as a writer, and I may start with something that's autobiographical, but I will fictionalize it. At the same time, I'm working on a book and that has some autobiography in it. And I'm asking my sister about the same era, and she will remember it completely different. She says, no, that isn't what happened. So what is truth?
Well, Sukema, you've anticipated my next question again, which is when you're writing about someone you know who is still alive, is that tricky?
Of course it's tricky, and for that reason I don't really. It's different for me than for most poets, I think, because I'm Greek and I write in English, and not too many people I know read my actual poetry. So I have that advantage, if you like. So, for example, my father, who I've written about a little bit, does not read my poetry. So that's made it easier for me. And my mother, who I've written about extensively, is deceased. So I haven't really had that dilemma as much as other people maybe, and I know that it must be hard. I know people and friends of mine who have written poetry about their parents who are alive, who have read the poetry, etc., and it has been a difficult decision for them. So I understand that it is not always easy or straightforward.
For sure.
Ronna?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, in earlier writing, I wrote more explicitly about family, a living family, and a lot of people had not great reactions, and living through that. I mean, and I weighed it. It wasn't what's the word? I thought about it a long time before I published it. It wasn't like I was, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I actually reflected on this, and I knew that I needed to publish this piece to carry on with my life, and that it was, I potentially might lose people as a result of it, and I decided to do that. That I would suffer the grief of loss rather than not share the piece that I shared. Since then, I've said to people who know me well, if you tell me things, I may write about them, like just in advance, in case you want to hang out with me. But having said that, I also try to be, unless the piece is really essential to my soul, I try to ask, you feel okay about this? If it's really core, I'm going to probably take the risk and not ask. So it's not a straight line, it's not a straight answer. It's all dependent.
I think it was James Joyce who said that it was great being a novelist because he could take revenge. Sikema, do you want to add to what you said before about fictionalizing?
Well, I often, with people who are alive, if I'm invited to a party or some celebration, an anniversary, I often will write something that is not for the page, but more of a performance piece, often using an acrostic as a model, as a way of working with it, celebrating that person. And I will do that in consultation with people who know that person. Not necessarily them if it's a surprise. I might do it in consultation with them as well, but usually it's with people who know them well in writing it. And it's usually just a one-off piece that I perform at the party or the event.
Well, just to round off, can poetry create healing? Vasiliki?
Well, I think so, yeah. I mean, I think it can. I think it can be very helpful in processing certain experiences. For me, it has been in terms of I feel ownership. It can give you agency over things that have happened. It can give you ownership over things that have happened. Just taking, for example, a difficult experience and putting it on the page and having control over what you do with that experience is very helpful and healing in some ways. And there are many other ways in which poetry can be healing as well. Just sharing with other people is very healing. Or listening to a friend's poem and empathizing is very healing as well. And I think part of the poetry sort of journey is having a kind of small community of friends with whom you share, and your poems might contain things that you haven't even shared with friends, and I think that is a very kind of beautiful and healing quality of the poetry that's aside from the writing of the poems. So yeah, I feel that mainly being able to gain agency over some things, perhaps traumatic events, in the writing of them can be healing.
Thank you.
I always have a mixed reaction to the word healing. It worries me. I feel like it's a lot of pressure on the poem and on me. And so I always kind of get like a little anxious with that word. I like the way that Vasiliki amplified it with certain things that poetry can do and offer. One of the things that I love is it offers a place to rest, a bigger space than what one is already occupying. You can lean into the space of a poem, like music or a painting, something to hold you. In that way, it can be a restful thing. For that, I think that's all I can say today in this moment. If you ask me in an hour, I probably have another answer. But yeah.
Thank you. Sukeba.
Yes, definitely, yes. With my experience of both in survivors poetry, working in the mental health field, as well as my work with cancer patients, I've over and over again experienced that. Poetry can hurt as well. It can sting you. It can hurt. But the other aspect about poetry is very similar to your question, Stephanie, is about the question that Mila's been asking about, what can poetry change the world? And I think of songs, and I think of South Africa and the anti-apartheid movement rode on songs. It really moved. And the civil rights movement in America, songs, one song after another. And I think songs are poems in voice, and they are healing, and they lead to action, they lead to change in our world.
Thank you. Well, that's all of your last question answers were fantastic ending to this session. Thank you all for very deep and moving poems, and also for your very thoughtful replies, which I hope will be of help to anyone who's writing about their own traumas. And before I close, I'd just like to remind the audience that we have another session. The next one is at 16:30 GMT, hosted by Mila. And the poets will be Juana Adcock, Chelsea Harlan, and Moira Egan. And so Juana is Mexican, Chelsea and Moira are American. So I do hope you'll be able to watch that. If not, don't forget that all the sessions are available on YouTube, presumably permanently. So you could catch up then. But thank you all for listening, and thank you, poets, again for an amazing session.